Welcome. Today, we're going to step into a different kind of world. We're opening the door to the Amish Pantry. It's a place that's absolutely overflowing with tradition and some seriously good food. We're going to see how they use skills from way back when to keep their families fed all year round without just plugging something into the wall. So, let's get started.
So let me ask you something. Just imagine for a second. Your garden is bursting with food, but you don't have a big freezer to save it all for the cold months. What would you even do? Well, that's a puzzle the Amish figured out a long time ago. And their solution? It's pretty amazing.
You see, for an Amish family, having a pantry that's packed to the ceiling with jars of food, well, that isn't just a weekend hobby. It's at the very heart of their way of life. It's all about being prepared, working together, and really living off the land that they care for so much. And this really shows you the big reason why they do it. Most of us, we live on the grid, right? We're plugged into power lines, we have big freezers, and we can just run to the grocery store. The Amish, though, they choose to live off-grid. And it's not because they hate technology, it's because they want to be self-reliant. They don't want to depend on the outside world, and that idea is so important to who they are. And that's what's so interesting. They're really practical about it. In many Amish communities, you'll see things like gas-powered refrigerators or even solar panels that run certain tools. See? The goal isn't to live in the past, but to carefully choose how they connect with the modern world so they can stay independent. So how in the world do they do it? Well, they've got this whole treasure chest of incredible skills. I mean, they're pickling cucumbers, smoking and curing meats so they last for ages, drying out fruits, and using these cool dark root cellars for things like potatoes and carrots. But, one of the most important skills in that whole toolkit is canning. Okay, so let's roll up our sleeves and look at one of their most classic techniques. We're going to learn how to can meat using what's called the raw pack method. It sounds kind of intense, but it's way simpler than you'd think. And oh my goodness, the results are just so delicious. All right, this is where the magic happens. First things first, you get your jars clean and your meat all prepped. Now, step 2, this is the real secret. You pack that raw meat in there nice and tight, but you don't add a single drop of water. As it cooks, the meat makes its own delicious broth right there in the jar. Then you leave exactly 1 inch of empty space at the top. That part is super important. After that, you wipe the rims clean, put the lids on, and get them ready for a trip into what we're going to call the Safety Sauna. Now, this chart, this is like the secret code for making sure everything is safe. You have to follow these times and pressures perfectly. For the smaller pint jars, you're looking at 75 minutes. For the bigger quart jars, it's 90 minutes. These numbers aren't just random guesses, okay? They're based on real science to make sure that food is perfectly safe to eat all year long. So, after the jars come out of the canner and they start to cool down, you hear it, that super satisfying pop. It's the best sound in the world if you're a canner. It's the sound of success. But what's actually making that sound? Well, it might feel like magic, but it's actually really cool science. That little pop means you've created what's called a vacuum seal. And here's the easiest way to picture it. It's like the jar takes a big gulp of air and then just holds its breath for a really long time. And that's what keeps the food inside protected from all the air and germs out here. So how does it happen? It's like a little 3-step dance. First, when the jar gets hot inside the canner, the air inside expands and gets pushed out. Second, as the jar starts to cool down, everything inside, the food, the liquid, it all shrinks a little bit. That creates an empty space, a vacuum. And then step 3, pop! The air pressure in your kitchen pushes down on the lid because it's stronger than the pressure inside the jar now. And that's what makes that perfect, tight seal. So simple, but so smart. Okay, now we've talked about how these are old traditions, but it is absolutely crucial that we talk about the modern science that keeps them safe. When it comes to our food, being wise is every bit as important as being old-fashioned. This right here explains a really important safety rule. For foods that are high in acid, like pickles or most fruits, a hot bath canner is totally fine. The boiling water gets to 212 degrees. But for foods that are low in acid, like meat or green beans, there's a tougher little germ that can survive that heat. That's why you need the Safety Sauna, the pressure canner. It gets up to a super hot 240 degrees, which makes sure that food is absolutely 100% safe. And speaking of science, here's a fascinating little update that shows you how we're always learning new things. Because, believe it or not, even something as classic as a tomato isn't quite what it used to be. You see, the tomatoes that our great-grandparents grew were a lot more acidic. But over the years, farmers have bred new kinds of tomatoes that are sweeter and, well, less acidic. So the USDA now says that to be on the safe side, they might not be acidic enough to fight off germs in a hot bath canner all by themselves. But the solution is so easy. All you have to do is add a little bit of lemon juice to each jar. It's a tiny little change that makes a huge difference and keeps an old tradition totally safe.
So when you put it all together, you realize that canning is about science and it's about safety. But for the Amish, it's also about something so much deeper than that. It's what connects them to their land, to their family history, and most importantly, to each other.
This just says it all, doesn't it? When an Amish family sits down for dinner in the middle of winter and opens a jar of green beans, they're not just opening food, they're opening a memory. A memory of a hot summer day, working together in the garden as a family.
Every single one of those beautiful jars shining on the pantry shelf tells a story. It's a story about hard work, about being patient, and about family. It's just a wonderful symbol of what it means to provide for the ones you love.
And that kind of leaves us all with one final thought. Whether it's an old family recipe, a special skill someone taught you, or just a story you tell around the table, we all have traditions that are worth holding on to. So it makes you think, doesn't it? What traditions are you going to help carry on? Thanks so much for joining us today.